Hey everyone, let's take a look at 9.4, which should be out in just a week's time. These are the changes stated for the patch. So we have buffs to Gnar, Trundle, Hecarim, Varus, Azir, Neeko, Rek Sai, and Essence Reaver. We also have nerfs to Yasuo, to Thresh, Karthus, Urgot, and Lucian, and then changes kind of rearranging stuff to Vi, Zed, Silas, and a rework to Conqueror. We know what some of these are pretty much definitely going to look like, but I also managed to track down some of these others that you can see on screen now that are a bit more tentative. That means that they might make it in, they might not. Some of them are bigger than others as well. A lot of them are actually reverts, like the Thresh and the Yasuo ones are buffs that were made previously, which they're now undoing. I'm not going to spend too much time on these just because they might not actually even make it into the final game. We'll have to see, but the biggest one will probably be the Karthus one, taking a lot of damage off of his ultimate. By the way, before we get started, we're up against Red Mercy this week in our quarterback challenge, so we definitely need as much help as we can get and try and beat him. The club with the most trophies at the end of the season wins, but there are also a bunch of coins up for grabs for the best members in our club. Even if we lose, you can still get rewarded. If you don't know, Quarterback is a site where you can just play League, join challenges before each game, you get coins for completing those challenges, and use the coins for free skins. It is absolutely free, you just have to have it running in the background and join those challenges, and there's a link to join my club down below. So the first thing to look at is the Rune Change, the Conqueror change, right? Attacks or spells that deal damage to an enemy champion grant 3 to a 15 adaptive force based on level for 3 seconds, which is 8 seconds for melee. It stacks up to 5 times, and when it's fully stacked, you do 10% of your damage as true damage, and you heal for the same amount. It's kind of like the old Further Battle. Do you guys remember that from a few seasons ago? You stack it up during combat, and it's better with more time. The healing is now there to encourage longer fights, so you're not really punished for stacking it up. In theory, if you take a little bit of damage as you stack, you kind of heal some of that back at the end. It could be really good for AD carries or range champions now as well. Like 5 stacks is not too bad to get, and 10% true damage and healing is pretty good. When you look at the scaling though, this is where I think it becomes much better and actually a really good keystone that you're going to want to take more. 10% of true damage converted is pretty good anyway. I don't have to explain that part, but the heal as well. Obviously, the more damage you do, the more true damage that is, which is why it scales so well. The stacking though, it is 75 AP max level and 45 AD when it's fully stacked, right? That is a lot of extra damage. The other thing is that AP champions can genuinely use this now because its attacks or spells stack up your Conqueror. This is a huge part about this I think a lot of people have forgotten about. It's like when Dark Harvest got reworked to work with spells as well. First thing, if you weave abilities and auto attacks together, you stack this up insanely fast now. Like 5 stacks is not going to be that difficult to get to. Number 2, if you're just AP, like maybe a Rumble or something, you could stack it up with your Flame Spitter, and then your ultimate would have 75 more AP and do 10% true damage. That seems pretty nuts to me. So basically, it opens it up to AP champions, range champions. In theory, any style of champion could use this like we have with the Dark Harvest rework. It's just whether or not it's a better option than what you have at the moment. That is a really big thing about this patch, but we do also have some AD carry stuff here as well to shake up a few crit changes. So Essence Reaver, the cooldown reduction on that is now a unique passive, and it has 5 more AD. I'm not sure anybody was actually doing this, but before you could have bought 2 Essence Reavers, got 40% cooldown reduction and 50% crit out of it with a bunch of AD. I didn't really think about it before at all until this change came in, but that probably wouldn't have been that bad actually on a few champions like a Sivir. Like you reach 100% crit, you have a ton of AD at the same time. It is also getting a straight buff though, 5 AD bonus, which might not seem that big, but we're probably going to be buying this a bit more often now, I think, because of our next change. The Shard, the Rapid Fire Cannon, the Shiv, and Stormrazor have had their damage moved into a unique energized passive. So before, the way this worked was each of these passives were called something a bit different. Shiv was called a Shiv Lightning, Rapid Fire was called a Fire Cannon, so that meant that they stack together. The parts that do stack now are things like the Lightning from the Shiv, the extra range from the Rapid Fire, the increased effectiveness of other energized effects from the Stormrazor. Those are still there. You can buy them and get all of those things together, but the damage parts of those are now moved into one unique passive. What that means is if you have all of these together, I assume only the highest damage one will actually apply it and not all of them together anymore. So this is going to be a nerf to getting like IE, Shiv, Rapid Fire and stuff, but it's not going to be the absolute end of the world, especially if you're going for 100% crit build. I actually saw Regulus do this. He went IE to attack speed items and then an Essence Reaver to get 100% crit, and it's a lot of AD and crit. The only other AD change we have is Lucian. W mana cost increased by 20 at all ranks, so the damage has been lowered by 10 early and 30 late. This is the only AD getting direct nerfs, and this is mainly targeting his early lane phase, I think. There are 2 parts to this. We get this at level 1, so we can stack mana flow bang quicker at the very start of the game, poke from range, and push or trade a little bit better. That is now going to be worse though, because it's more mana in the first place, but it's also less damage, which is not particularly good. The other part is that some people are starting to actually max this, or at least put 3 points champions into it for harder lanes so they could farm and poke a little bit from farther away. The way we normally do it is max at Q, then at E, and then at W last. So level 18, losing 30 damage off at W rank 5 isn't really a big deal. When you max your W first though, you're going to feel that 30 damage way more, if that makes sense. I'm guessing that is something Riot weren't exactly fans of, which is why they're trying to get you to max your Q first. We'll probably see him fall down a little bit here as well, just because he's already struggling a little bit later into the game against all of the crit champions after 9.3, and now he's getting nerfed as well. One of the biggest champion changes that we have at the moment, at least, is 2Z. He's going to feel a lot different to play after 9.4. So his attack speed per level has been increased, and the Q damage has actually been changed from 90 to 230, from 80 to 220, but it also uses 10% more of your AD. The W recast range is up from 1300 to 1950, which is the same that spells can mimic at, by the way. The cooldown is lowered by 2 seconds on that rank 1, but your ultimate passive that gave more AD has been removed. The main buff out of this, I think, is your Q damage being up, and also the 10% more AD as well. It's the main way to trade in lane, but it's also you're like pushing the wave and stuff. The reason I say that is because it's going to let him roam a little bit more, hopefully get more of a lead in the lane phase. You can push harder and not be trapped under your tower either. The other big part is the W recast range, right? That's going up to match the range that you can fire spells out as well. That will make going in for fights much easier in the lane phase, and it's kind of like an extra third added onto it. So you can juke, dive in, run away, whatever you want to do from much further away. The issue though is going to be that passive AD, right? You got from your ultimate is now that's completely gone. This is where you would steal up to 15% of the target's AD when you killed them with your ultimate. So if you got the enemy AD carry or something, that was a massive boost. That is a lot of AD to lose, especially late game, right? So it seems like you have to win your lane or you're going to be kind of screwed. The only other good thing about all of this, I think, that some people are overlooking is that you could split push more now if you wanted to as a way to win the game. You'd have less AD, obviously late game, but you'd have better wave clear with your Q to push faster and a better shadow to juke around, which might make it overall just easier to do it. So let's move on to our Sylas changes. These are a bit vague, by the way, you're going to notice that, but the second part of your Q is now much more reliable to hit, apparently. It also now does full damage to monsters, well, the second part does anyway, and your W heal has been lowered by 20 rank 5, but is less likely to be interrupted. I think Sylas is actually not that bad right now, but he's a new champion and a little bit weird to get used to at first, which is why he doesn't look that good. The changes are a bit weird, but basically the second part of your Q, the crossover part that should be easy to hit now, which is also the part that slows people. That part now also does full damage to monsters, which opens up Sylas as a jungle pick a lot more. If you can farm camps faster, you can in theory gank a lot more. Your W is apparently also much more forgiving, even though the damage is going down a bit. And I stalked the designer of Sylas' Twitter a little bit. Maybe I shouldn't say it like that, but basically I checked him out and it seems like he thinks Sylas is pretty good at the moment. He actually said as well that he really wants to buff Sylas because he wants more people to play him, but he can't because the high healer players or the really good ones are going to make him look too good if he does that. We've seen this cooldown reduction kind of cap tank-ish build do pretty well, and the heal is actually still amazing to play with, but it'll probably just take some time till we see Sylas a little bit more. Now let's move into our Urgot changes. So the passive bonus damage has been lowered by 10% of your AD. Your W mana cost has been increased to 65 at all ranks from 45 to 65, and the shield amount has been changed from 60 to 180 plus 30% of your bonus health is now 30 to 190 plus 15% of your bonus health. The shield, I think, is the really big part here though. It should mean you're able to smash him a bit harder. The cooldown was already nerfed. Now the mana cost is up as well, so you can't use it as much and it'll block a lot less. The scaling has been halved on this thing, right? It makes it seem like they are going for the lane phase bully focus, I guess. If you can survive though against him, then he won't be anywhere near as good going into mid game anymore, and that's the phase you really want to abuse him. So just a couple more champions now to round out the video, and Rek Sai is getting some big buffs, and I 100% expect to see her in 9.4 to sort of replace what Camille was doing before. Her Q in your burrow now generates 25 fury when you hit a champion, and your W is much louder for champions, like the tremor sense. Your ultimate now becomes untargetable at the very start of your cast and can only be dodged by enemies that teleport more than 1,000 units away now. Rek Sai actually has some stupid damage in her kit at the moment. If you haven't played against her in a while, you won't realize, but she has been used a lot in career. When the meta is focused on early game, she's often top tier in terms of win rate. The big issue though is that you don't scale amazingly, and you can dodge the ultimate with just a flash, and suddenly she is dove in to execute somebody, they survive, and now you're probably going to be dead. To dodge this now, you have to travel over 1,000 units, which is a ton. Flash is 400, by the way, so I can't think of many things that can actually do that now. It's kind of making it more guaranteed damage, so you can actually like calculate it in, can I kill somebody? We know hard early gankers work as well, because Camille and Xin Zhao are really good, so that shouldn't be a problem. She's also getting more fury before a fight actually starts, so she'll have more damage now, by poking him with her Q, and the ultimate will make her untargetable straight away, which is another big thing. If you're fighting somebody in the middle of a team or something and you use this, there is no way for them to do anything about it. They can't target you, they can't stop you. I think just that small part there will make her a lot stronger. So I've left kind of the biggest actual overall champion shakeup till last, which is Vi. It's kind of like a mini rework actually. There are so many changes here, but there are a few really big parts. So your passive shield is now stronger, but with some attack speed in your build as well, or clever use of your E as an auto reset, you can actually get the cooldown down even more. Your Q damage might be a bit lower to start with, but it scales really well with total AD, not bonus. So the longer the game goes, in theory, the better this will actually get. We also might see a top lane Vi come back. Now, honestly, it doesn't do reduced damage to minions, but we'll have to see. I know a few people, she's actually not that bad as a top laner. You should be farming better either way, though, which is important in this meta, I think. And then your ultimate will move away from just being single target. It is still just a main target that you grab and everything, but it does full damage to everybody you knock aside. It knocks them back for longer and further, so it's kind of like a mini Nautilus. Oh, not quite, but that is the idea. This should mean as well that it's locked down for that one person, but if you use it properly, it can double as a good way to disrupt the entire enemy team, do good damage to them all, and stop them from reacting as easily. In my opinion, even with a longer cooldown, this is actually a much better engage tool, especially for team fights. So that is going to wrap up a look into 9.4. I am still ill. I'm sorry about my voice. It's probably not as good as normal, but just to let you know as well, as long as I'm not too ill, I'll be streaming some solo queue right now, testing out some new AD builds, so definitely come on over. Link to that is down below. Thank you for watching, and for now, I'll leave you with the robots.